Hey everybody, Wayne here. In today's Let's Play, we're going to be taking a look at Franklin, November 29th through 30th, 1864. Published by Old School Wargames, a brother company to Worthington Games. This game is part of the Civil War Brigade Battle Series. It is a two-player hex encounter, I go, you go style of wargame. It's based on some older games, however, it is, it's updated, obviously, very nice components. It's a new Old School Wargames / Worthington game production, right? So really nice pre-cut, individually punched counters, hard mounted map. You'll see all that stuff. If you haven't seen the recon, the unboxing video, check that out. Otherwise, you're going to see it once we get onto the table. Obviously, Franklin the game covers Hood's disastrous campaign into Tennessee in 1864. In this game, you get the Battle of Spring Hill, or the Battle of, or I should say also, the Battle of Franklin. And you can either play either one as a scenario, or you can actually play combined scenarios. You can play both of them in a row with losses carrying over, which is kind of a nice little campaign feature that I really enjoy. This system, it is very simple. It's got something like 8 pages of rules. There's going to be a series rulebook with about 8 pages of rules, and it'll be a individual game rulebook with maybe a couple more pages of rules, if that. This one does not have even that much, but it has a scenario setups, all the unit setups, some background information, historical information. If you want to kind of recap, if you've kind of forgotten what happened there, or you just want to get caught up, you can go ahead and read that. We're going to go out on the table. I'm not going to show every single turn in the game, but I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the Franklin scenario, and I'll just kind of give you guys some updates, and you'll see how the game is and how the game plays. So let's get down to the table. All right, so I have the Battle of Franklin set up here, that scenario. You can see the map is going to be, I guess it would be, a 24 by 17 inch map, I believe. So mounted map here. We have this initial setup, so it's the beginning of turn 1 or before turn 1 here. The Union is all set up in their locations. Now, it gives you sort of a general setup of the units. It doesn't have each, say, specific brigade in a certain hex location where they would be historically, so you would have to look it up yourself. So I kind of put out semi-historically, semi-not, but you have a general idea, right? I mean, you have your Union here in Franklin, and they are going to be in all of the fortified hexes with the earthworks here outside of Franklin, where the Confederates thought that they were hasty defenses and didn't realize that they were a lot stronger than they expected. You have the supply wagons within Franklin as well, that the Union had been trying to get out of Spring Hill, and now we're trying to get out of Franklin and trying to get, heading north to Nashville. By the way, compass direction down here, north is actually that way, right? So it's towards the right of the screen as you're looking at it. So that would be west, south, and east, just so we're not confused on cardinal directions here. Union has some cavalry brigades, cavalry corps out here, has some more cavalry over here. Specifically, this is the Hughes Ford. This is where historically Buford, right, his cavalry made attempted a crossing over the Big Harpeth River, and then were ultimately repulsed, though, and were pushed back. In this scenario, you can't cross the Harpeth River other than at a specific at any fords or bridges. You have the ford here. Other than that, there are no fords over here at all. Then you have the 2 bridges that are currently damaged, right? Which historically, again, took some time for the Union to repair them, at which point they are going to be trying to move your supply wagons across. The Confederates start entirely off map. So down here at the bottom of your screen, you can see the turn starting at 1300 hours. Turn 1 goes all the way up to turn 8 right at 2000 hours. And you have maybe hard to see from the top-down view, but those are different stacks that I've just placed. Those come as reinforcements, and you can see the A here, then the B here. Those are 2 areas in the map where you'll have the Confederates coming in. I did put Forest Cavalry Division under Hood. I placed that. It goes in as reinforcements here. I just placed them here because they will come in at location B on the Lewisburg Pike, which again, historically, right, were pressured. The Union here at Hughes Ford and attempted to cross and attempted to turn the flank on the Union forces at Franklin. This battle in particular, so Spring Hill, just to give my little recap, is much more, seems like a 2-player friendly type scenario where you have both forces effectively start off map as reinforcements, and they come out of the map, and then they maneuver around and all that. much more fluid for both sides. This Battle of Franklin, I think, is going to be a lot more solitaire friendly, as you have the Union forces fairly entrenched and really you're not going to see a ton of movement. You know, and you have some historical sort of limitations. For instance, you have Lane and Bradley under Wagner. You have them here in that forward defensive location, right? That they were, and that's where they were at, and they were told not to move, and that's why you have may not move. The only way they can move is, I believe, if they are panicked or routed. At that point, they can flee, which again is historically what happened, right? You had, they just stood there. Confederates came in and started whooping them. You had a lot of the veterans would flee and fled back towards Franklin, and then you had a lot of the new recruits, which there were quite a few of, that were actually basically frozen in fear, and they stayed there, and they ended up getting captured, and that's how the Confederates got, I believe, something like 700 prisoners of war from just these two brigades here. So, again, you can see the Columbia Nashville Pike heading right into Franklin, Lewisburg Pike down here. You're going to have, you know, a lot of forces coming down on A, some of them on B. You can form them up as the Confederacy, march up and attack as it was historically. You know, historically, right, it was Union were here entrenched. Confederates thought there was hasty defenses. They were a little better than expected, or a lot better, and the rebels were tore up. I think that, you know, again, will make this a great solitaire scenario is just the fact you have the Union side is really going to be where they're going to be. There'll be a little maneuver, maybe some cavalry, but for the most part, you're kind of just trying to hold off the rebels, waiting till the bridges get fixed, and then you're going to be trying to move your supply wagons across the Big Harpeth River. And that's part of the victory conditions will be, you know, obviously causing damage, inflicting casualties. You're getting victory points from that either side, as well as the supply wagons. That's a huge part of it. Rebels, if they can get to them, oh, that's going to be big for them. The Union, same thing. They can get them across, get these bridges repaired, which just takes until, you just have to hold out, I think, till turn 5 or 6. Don't quote me on that. It's one of those. So you just have to hold out for a while, right? Prevent any breakthroughs, which was threatened at one point here at the Carter House, is where you had the rebels almost broke through. But Union can hold off the rebels. They get the supply wagons across the river, get them moved down here. You're going to go ahead and get victory points from that. So the system here, again, it's hex encounter. It's fairly simple. It is, I covered it again on my recon a little bit, but it is basically you have, you know, from your, like here's a standard infantry unit, strength points in the bottom right, 21 strength points, and they will be counted down with strength point markers here, right? So they will be turned facing the top to see where they're at. You can see his infantry with the artwork, Union with the blue color in the back. This is Bradley's brigade, and then his, you know, division commanders, either Wagner or Stanley. And you can see actually does start off reduced due to him. Those brigades haven't been involved in the fight over Spring Hill, even though it was a lot more limited than it probably should have been, in, at least if you were looking at it from the rebel perspective. From the Union perspective, everything went just fine. You know, you have some artillery around. Again, you have individual artillery. You stack one combat unit per hex. Hex encounter, right? So you're moving, movement points. Each type of unit has different type of movement, different amount of movement points. Infantry, you have this cavalry, which can be dismounted. You just flip them over, and then they will be dismounted. You have leaders, right? They're going to have certain stars on there. Wilson, right? Cavalry Corps leader. You're going to have actually here Johnson. So he's he's under Wilson, right? And he is he's kind of a lower rank leader. They'll provide bonuses during combat for morale, morale checks. Color of the morale as well. You can see green, black, and then there is gold for the highest morale. That comes with, in effect, during the morale checks. So I'm trying to think of anything else. Train, obviously, with hex encounter, obviously you got to worry about the train. Yeah, so in this particular scenario, I mean, the Union's going to be mainly sitting tight. They can't even move these guys back if they wanted. They just sit tight. Confederates are going to come on in. You know, again, you want to form lines, you may want to attack piecemeal, however you kind of want to do it. Obviously, that's the part where you get to decide. But the Confederates, the rebels, are going to be trying to push into Franklin, get those supply wagons before these bridges are repaired, and the Union gets them across, as well as hopefully maybe being more successful crossing Hughes Ford here and moving to threaten the flank of Franklin and the Union forces. So, the actual sequence of play here, it's going to be, depending on the battle, different players go first. In the Battle of Franklin here, the Confederates go first. They'll be the first player. There'll be a command phase. It's where you check those leaders I pointed out, and just want to see you have their units within I believe it's 4 hexes of them, 3 hexes if it's a replacement leader. Then you go to the organization phase, which is actually skipped in this game. That would be where you could build breastworks, abatis, things like that, right? You can't do that in this game, this particular game. Whatever is on the board is what's on the board. After that is offensive artillery. They can then, fire. Movement phase, moving your units around. Then you're going to have combat phase. Defensive fire first. So the other player, right, the non-active player. Then the active player has their offensive fire. Then you have melee combat, which you can possibly advance after combat. And then finally, the rally phase. Be the first player, again, Confederates, and then it'll be the Union goes. And yeah, I think that's it for a good little overview of kind of how the game works and how the system itself works. Again, it's a fairly simple hex and counter style system. And I think this scenario in particular is actually going to play pretty well solitaire. When you have one side that's a little more static, I always think that plays well for solitaire. So let's go ahead and I'm going to start just playing a little bit, and we'll pop back into the video when some exciting stuff's happening. All right, let's get to it. All right, so we just are working our way through the first turn and the Confederate half of the first turn. So command phase is easy because everyone's off board, so you don't have to worry about that. Again, you skip the organization phase. I won't mention it again. It's going to be skipped this entire game. There's the offensive artillery phase. There was no artillery in a position to fire for the Confederates, so no worries there. Movement phase is where we move. So we had a whole bunch of cavalry. I believe it was Forrest's entire cavalry corps came in on B here. We had Buford's men here move up the Lewisburg Pike, and the cavalry, and then horse artillery is still actually looks like limbered here, but we have dismounted cavalry, and then Buford here is with Bell's cavalry, and they're not dismounted yet. And then down here at Hughes Ford to try to push the Union back from the ford. The majority of them are in a position to either be able to fire, so the horse artillery has moved and is unlimbered. And then you have dismounted cavalry here. And I did make a note, so I think I mentioned in my little overview that you flip them over. You don't do that. It's actually, as you can see, dismounted little counters you put on them to show they're dismounted, and because when they're mounted they can move faster, but they can't engage in fire combat. Now that they're dismounted, they can. So we definitely want that, and you can do this during the setup. You can pick how you want your units. So although I didn't have them on there initially, the Union, the fact that they're guarding the fort, they're going to want to have their guns ready. They're going to go ahead and be ready, which also historically the Union, I believe the Union cavalry here at Hughes Ford had the Spencer repeaters, so it made them actually quite effective. Is what really helped them, even though being outnumbered, helped them hold Hughes Ford here. So, okay. So what I did, like I said, is I have them dismounted, everyone dismounted, and we're going to kind of do a little combat here, and I'll show you guys how combat works. So it is so after movement phase, you go into the active player's combat phase. So first off, remember there's that defensive fire, so the Union's going to get to fire at Confederate units, and that's anywhere, right? I mean, that's... I go, you go, right? So it's anywhere. It's not just here, not just specific, thing that's activated. It's going to be all the units. So we're going to focus on down here, though, at Hughes Ford, these cavalry and them fighting each other along with the horse artillery. So with the defensive fire, for the Union, what I'm looking at is Hatch's horse artillery here. Looks like they're in a good position. And then the actual dismounted, Kuhn's dismounted cavalry here, looks like they're in a pretty good position as well, and they have their leader stacked with them. So they're going to engage in defensive fire. Jackson, the leader, he has dismounted Armstrong cavalry right here. Yeah, the Union's going to go ahead and fire at this hex here. So fire combat, very simple. You indicate the target hex and units firing at the target. So that's the target hex right here. And we're going to indicate the units firing going to be this horse artillery and this dismounted cavalry. Now, artillery have a range of up to 5 hexes. They have to be unlimbered, which this is, right? So limbered would be that one there, right on its backside. You can see it's all set up to be carried by horses or dragged around by horses. These are all ready to go. This will be 1 hex away, so it's actually good when I calculate the strength points. It's actually going to double the strength points because artillery, right, when they're at kind of point blank range, right, they can fire canister, a little bit more effective, especially against infantry or dismounted cavalry, which counts as the same thing in this game once they're dismounted. And then the cavalry, unlimbered, or excuse me, the dismounted cavalry acting as infantry. They'll be firing. They only have a range of 1 hex. Again, think of the ranges here. Think of you have, you know, 1 unit is an entire brigade, takes up an entire hex, so you're not going to get to fire multiple hexes away for your infantry. But that's okay. They're firing literally 1 hex away. So check line of sight. Adjacent units always have a clear line of sight, which they do. There wouldn't be anything in the way anyway. This is all clear terrain, and then there's just the river in the way, so nice and easy shot. Check the range chart. Modify each firing unit's strength point separately. So again, that artillery has a 2 strength. Nope, that's going to double to 4. And then the infantry here is 10, just 1 away. No modifiers, no changes at all. So it'll be a total of 14. You total all units modified strength points, so a total of 14. Reference the total number of strength points on the combat chart, the CRT. I'll go ahead and have that pop up for you guys so you can see. It'll be the 13 through 16 column, right? 14. And you can see it is a D10, which also you can have the dice over here, nice and colored. So we're going to be rolling. Now we are the Union. We are firing at the rebels here. You're going to roll the D10, apply any modifiers from the die roll modifier list below the combat chart. 1 for each firing unit beyond 2 if 3 or more in adjacent hexes. That does not apply. -2 DRM if dismounted cavalry, part of firing group. Yep, so that will, dismounted cavalry, right, is part of the group, so it is going to be a -2 for there. -1 if the defender's in a breastworks marker. There's none there. Shift 1 column to the right if firing on routed infantry column, mounted cavalry, or limbered artillery. Neither is true. So, and the leader himself, by the way, you're like, what about the leader? He will help with any possible morale checks if that happened against whoever is the, has the leader there, which in this case would be the Confederates as well because Jackson is there. So, all right, 13 to 16 column, 1d10. We're going to go ahead and roll with a -2 because dismounted cavalry here, Kuhn dismounted cavalry is part of the group firing over here. So give it a roll, see what happens. 8 with a -2 becomes a 6. Checking the chart, you can see it is a 1. The number is the target loses that many steps and has to make a morale check. So he has 9 strength points here. So he is going to lose, he's going to lose 1. So he drops to 8. So we grab the strength marker here, put it at the 8, and just put it underneath to show that he has dropped. And then we're going to go ahead and he will have to make a morale check as well. Morale checks, much like the fire combat, are very simple. You're going to check the unit's morale level based on the colored box around its strength points, which Armstrong, see the colored box here is gold. That's the highest. That's a 9. Ignore the number. Remember that strength point number? By the way, it's down to 8. But ignore the number what's in there. So when I say 9, it's just coincidence. So basically a 9, gold highest, black would be 7. So you can see some black units there, 7. And then green would be 5. That's the worst. So with a 9, plus he has, right, Jackson leader stacked with him. That gives a +1. You roll the 1d10. If the number is higher than the unit's modified morale number, then the unit routes. Obviously, you can't go higher than 10, but you do route on a 10 always. It's an automatic regardless, right? So basically, he's only going to route. He's, it's gold morale, high morale. He's probably not going to route, but there's a small chance. So you want to go ahead and give it a roll. And that's a 10. That is a route. So actually, Armstrong's cavalry is going to route. So he is given a route marker. And I know I have him somewhere around here somewhere. He is going to be retreating 3 hexes. And when because I can see where he is, when he retreats through, if or when, which in this case it's when, he retreats through friendly units, they're going to have to make morale checks to make sure that they don't route as well. So let me find the morale, or the route marker, and we'll go ahead and resolve this. All right, here's a routed marker. So, I need panic one as well. So what we'll do is we're going to go ahead and route Armstrong's artillery, or excuse me, cavalry here, or dismounted cavalry. What we're going to do is we'll go ahead and just take them both, them and their strength point marker. He has to retreat 3, so 1, 2, 3. we did retreat through the cavalry here, Biffle's cavalry. So we are going to do a morale check for them. But let's do, oops, and then he is dismounted still. Jackson was with him. So with the leader, when they're with a routed unit, they can actually change who they're with. So he's just going to, 2 hexes away, I believe it is. So he's going to switch over to, I believe that's also his, right? No, it is not. Oh, he'll go ahead and move up over here. Okay. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and make a morale check for Biffle's cavalry right here. So it's black. Remember, that changes it. So now with it being black, he has to roll a 7, and he does have his leader with him, though, so it gives him a +1. So he has to roll a, if it's 9 or 10, he will rout. It's a 1, so he is good. What we also do, though, is we place a, what am I looking for here? Place a panic marker in that hex. So that hex where there was that rout, the panic and retreat, we do place that panic marker. Okay, so he did not suffer any negative consequences from it, thankfully for him. Panic marker is there in that same hex, and went ahead and had the Armstrong's dismounted cavalry went and got the heck out of there. So that did open up that area there. So although they only caused 1 strength point of damage, they routed a unit. There's a panic marker there, which is going to cause, when you cause any morale checks for any units nearby, it's going to harm them more as well. So I believe that's it. Oh, no. And then, of course, routed as well. So we want to mark the cavalry here with a routed marker to show that he has been routed. And then you'll have to go ahead and recover from that in the future. So, okay, so that was the defensive fire there. Those could fire. None of these can fire here. This can fire here. This artillery can fire at one of these here. So he's definitely going to this reserve artillery here. He's going to fire at the horse artillery because why wouldn't he? So again, defensive fire. So it's the Union firing at the Confederates. 1, 2 hexes away. Checking for, unit firing, target hex right there, line of sight, it's clear terrain in between. It is check range 1, 2, which for the artillery just leaves it at 8. If they're firing at infantry, it would actually reduce it by half, but he's firing at other artillery, so it is stays at 8. Go ahead and check, and then I believe he will get because it's limbered artillery, he's going to get a 1 column shift to the right. So instead of 5 to 8, it'll actually be the 9 to 12. Otherwise, there are no other modifiers. So checking the CRT, 9 to 12, firing at him. A 1, that is no effect. Yeah, bummer, nothing there. So no effect from that ineffective fire. Other than that, I think that's going to be the only defensive fire. So then you would have first player, so the active player, their offensive fire. So the rebels here, which he is limbered, so he can't fire too far away. Remember, it has to be adjacent for infantry. He will get to fire him. So this horse artillery can fire at this horse artillery. Looks like line of sight will be blocked here. They should be able to see him there. Or he could fire, no, I think that would be blocked. This would be the one to fire at. And then the dismounted cavalry here can fire at Coons. Oh, he's dismounted though, remember? So I think I picked it up. Where'd it go? He's dismounted, so. All right, so he can fire at him as well. So I'm gonna go ahead, and then that'd be the only fire combat that can happen this turn for either side at this point, or at least, yeah, during the Confederate turn here. So I'm gonna resolve that off camera. You guys just saw combat, you saw fire combat. I'm gonna take care of that. Probably go into either the Union half, or maybe even just kind of play through when we get till the next turn. We start getting some more Confederate units out there and start doing some maneuvering and getting ready for the big battle around Franklin. All right, recap of turn 2 going into turn 3. So we completed the 1400-hour turn, entering the 1500-hour turn. We had a ton of rebel reinforcements enter in area A up here in the western part of the map. Reminder, north is that way. So the western part here at A, whole bunch of rebel infantry have been able to move in, start, I was going to say form battle lines, but it looks a little chaotic right now. They were, though, able to immediately press the forwardly staged Union brigades, Bradley and Lane. Wagner had placed out here, and there'd be these two locations, one of which was routed, and he was actually reduced quite a bit because I was able to get the rebel cavalry here, get them moved up, get them dismounted, Bell and Crossland, and move them and flank the two Union brigades. So when the one was routed, it actually had to retreat through zones of control, so it suffered multiple losses. I can't remember what it started with for SPs, but right now it's down all the way down to 12, and it's actually still considered routed because at the end of your turn, you do a rally phase. You see if any routed units, you have to make a morale check. He's green morale, so that brigade did not rally, so it is remaining routed, which means it's not going to be able to move towards the enemy at all until it comes back around and is able to get rid of that panic. Yep, so there's still one Union Brigade left. However, it is surrounded, and things aren't looking too good for it. When we go into this next turn, it will be the Confederates get to go first, so they're going to be able to bring overwhelming firepower on this brigade. Remember, historically, the Unions were pretty much swept aside pretty fast there anyway. A lot of men, the veterans retreated. The newer Union soldiers usually were captured, so they had something like 700 prisoners of war just from these two brigades out here. Over in the east, over at Hughes Ford, they're deadlocked, so most of the artillery, or excuse me, the cavalry have dismounted. They're fighting as infantry, although they're a little bit less effective according to the CRT in this game. They're just a little bit die roll modifiers are reduced. I demonstrated that, I believe, earlier last turn. But yeah, they're kind of stuck at the ford. There's definitely more Federals here, or excuse me, definitely more Rebels here. But with the Federals just having, the fact that the Rebels are going to have to knock them out of the way just to get across, just to bring their, greater force across. I don't know if it's going to happen. We'll see. The Union is getting some more horse artillery, is bringing them up here, about to deploy them after next turn, which is going to definitely give them an additional, bit of firepower down at the Rebels here. I don't know if it's going to happen, but Rebels going to keep trying for a while. Union's going to hold them, or try to hold them, and see what happens. A little bit of an artillery duel right here across Big Harthwick River between this horse artillery, Buford Forest, which is connected to them, which maybe 1, 2, 3, 4. I think he'll be in 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 4x away. I think he'll still be in command, because I believe it's artillery must be within 4 hexes of any leader, correct? And any leader technically. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So yep, he'll still be in command. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He is no longer in command, so we'll have to figure that out. But anyway, we'll do that during the command phase this upcoming turn. Obviously, the actual Union defenses around Franklin untouched so far, but Rebels are building up their forces, and they are going to be moving north and sweeping him out of the way very quickly, I'm sure, this turn, forming up, and they're going to be launching at the Union, and Union's going to see if they can hold them off. Yeah, down here, I don't know what's going to happen. A little bit of a scrum, a little bit of a mess down here. I'm not seeing any big breakthroughs happening, and then for the Rebels to be able to break through and then sweep across and flank up here, I just don't know if I'm going to see that happening, but we're going to play it out and see what happens. So I'll give you guys an update in a little bit. All right, recap of turn 3, 1500 turn, going into turn 4, 1600. There will be some Rebel reinforcements. I believe all the rest of the reinforcements are all the Rebel, the Union. They're out there. What they have is what they have. All the rest, by the way, for the next 3 turns, next 3 hours, are going to all be coming in at Area A here, Hex A. Okay, so out west, the 2 brigades, Union brigades, have been routed. I believe Lane was just forced to retreat. Bradley was routed earlier. He did recover from that as well, so he is ready to maneuver. Also, I believe Lane should have been marked with a out-of-command marker, although it didn't matter because he wasn't trying to move into his own control. And when you're out of command, you can still technically do offensive fire and defensive fire. So regardless, but he did cause some damage, caused some havoc out here. Actually routed Granberry's brigade over here, and they were forced to retreat and then failed their morale check, so they routed all the way back here. So it'll take them an extra turn to catch up to everybody. Otherwise, you can see the Rebels starting to form their battle line. From the rebel side, I'm planning to get out Stewart's division up front here, followed by the rest of Walthall's, Stewart's men kind of coming up behind, second line of battle. Attack right direct into the southern line here of the Union and Franklin. The fortifications, and don't forget, all the Union units are in fortifications, right? So it's going to be a big help for them. So even though the rebels outnumber them, they're in a much better defensive position. And then I think the rebels are going to try to sweep around and not really flank them, but certainly try to get more of an L shape and attack really along the entire line. We'll see how hard it is to be able to move them across these creeks and get them up moved over there. As for down here at Old Hughes Fort, I kind of figured, just like I figured it would be, it's a maelstrom of just chaos down here, fighting back and forth. And by the way, the losses so far, there's been obviously SPs reduced, SP losses, but for actual units sort of routed from the map, eliminated, it's just 1 horse artillery for each side, so nothing major yet. However, down here, we had a Union dismounted cavalry brigade that was routed, but the Union had more men that were able to quickly move up. Looks like Stewart's brigade here of cavalry were able to quickly move up into block the actual fort itself. So, and there's more units. We probably should Union try and move him out of there. I was gonna say there's some more horse artillery, strength of 7 down here that have been able to get set up, but from where they are, kind of hard, I think, to hit anybody. So they may have to maneuver, or the cavalry may have to move out of the way so that the artillery there can fire. Because I don't believe they were able to hit them. Firing over, he's adjacent. I don't think he can hit him. But anyway, that is the 1600 turn. Let's continue on and see what happens. All right, so I finished turn 4, the 1600 turn, and going into the turn 5, 1700. Now at the end of turn 5, so not the beginning, but the end, these 2 damaged bridge markers will be removed, and both bridges will be ready to go for these supply wagons to be crossed over Big Harpeth River and removed on the 1910 hex, which is right here, and then there is the road, see, heading off map. So the Union will have to survive with them a minimum of 1, well, technically 2 more turns, because Confederates go first here, and then the Confederates go first next turn as well, at least in regards to the wagons, the supply wagons. State of the board, state of the battle. The stalemate at Hughes Ford continues. Just a lot of back and forth. Units will get hurt, pushed back, but then they kind of reform up at the line. I think it's gonna stay a stalemate down here. I don't see any huge breakthroughs, and then also we're getting to the point where even if the rebels somehow get a breakthrough, I can't imagine they're gonna be able to make it all the way up here. Fort Granger, east side of Franklin, east side of the Big Harpeth River, and cause any sort of trouble, but we'll see. Up around Franklin, the rebels attacked on the southern part of the line and were fairly repulsed. You see some routed units. Can't remember if he was routed previously or not. Routed. Had to retreat up here, I believe, as well. So you had some units that just were routed and pushed back. The line has held pretty well. 1 unit retreated, and I'm not trying to manifest the historical result here, but literally we had, I believe it was, Wylie's brigade here, was pushed off the line, retreated, routed, I believe, or at least just retreated anyway. And Opdyke's brigade, again, historically, right, stepped into the line at the Carter House, was able to do that. So worked very well. Here you can see the rebels have some brigades, divisions, a couple divisions up here, attacking on the west line. It should be able to attack the western edge of Franklin this upcoming turn. You have to be some reforming of the Confederate lines here. We have some divisions getting separated from their leaders. You don't want that. You need to be able to stay in command. Speaking of which, most of the units have been able to stay in command, stay fairly well integrated with their leaders, with their other division brigades. A couple have not. I see the rebels reforming here, getting maybe some units pulling them off the line, reforming. Definitely be attacking again from the south. Looks like should be able to attack from the west with additional units in reserve. Sorry, fighting off a sneeze there. I'm going to say, though, I'm going to call it a little bit here. So we're starting turn 5 of this 8-turn scenario. I don't know if the Confederates are going to be able to break the lines around Franklin and inflict enough casualties and get to those wagons. So remember, we talked about this. The victory points for the game are going to be the wagons are a big one, and then there are victory points for causing casualties. Yes, there's going to be casualties on both sides, and there have been, there will be more. But I kind of see a historical result forming here. Again, I'm trying to avoid it, right, because you want to do something different, but I kind of see a historical result where the Confederates are just going to be throwing themselves at the defenses around Franklin. I just don't know if they have enough time. By the time the offensive started at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and then trying to break through these defenses, I just don't know. And then having to come off, right, at least from the map here, having to come off board, move on, form up, and then make their attacks. I just don't know if the rebels are going to have enough time. But let's play it out and see what happens. Wow, that was some turn. So just wrapped up turn 5, 1700 turn, going into turn 6, 1800. The damaged bridges have been repaired over Big Harpeth River, just east of Franklin. Let's go ahead and look, speaking of which, East Hughes Ford. The Union has been routed. A couple units were routed. He recovered, but have been pushed off the ford. So going into turn 6, the rebels who go first will be able to at least get one unit across. He'll enter his zone of control, and then he will basically be stopped there, but he will start moving units across. Too little too late, probably, but a little bit of movement over there. Now, looking up at Franklin, so we had actually, I believe it was, so Finley's brigade, I believe it was Finley's brigade, had taken position here. So he had pushed off Wylie's brigade, forced him to rout, and had actually taken part of the fortifications here, got up on the line. However, he was repulsed by 3 Union brigades, all firing at once. He was repulsed and pushed back. The rebels, they're hitting the line, but they are suffering a ton of casualties. You can see there's several rebel units that are actually on their reduced side, the back side, which means they've lost at least half their strength points. The Union, they've suffered some losses, of course, and like I said, they've had a couple brigades pushed off the line now too, but they've had some reinforcements ready to plug those holes, push the rebels back off the line, and then plug the hole. So, with the starting, like I said, the 1800 turn here, bridge repair. So starting, it's going to be the rebels first, of course. So they're going to hit the line. They're going to cause some damage, I'm sure. But it's tough because they're attacking all these fortification lines here. They're suffering a negative to their die roll, right, on their attack. So both the fire combat, right? So offensive fire, and then with any melee combat, which for the rebels is just hurting them, especially because when you engage in melee, right, the defender gets to fire at you, get to have some defensive fire at you. So the Union just sitting tight in their fortifications are just whooping the rebels. Rebels are suffering a lot of casualties. I'm probably going to play out this turn here, but I'm guessing through the Union side, they're going to get wagons. They're going to get a number of them across and off the map. Maybe not every single one of them, depending on how the movement works here, but they're going to get a bunch of them across. Once they do that, all those victory points combined with the casualties, and yes, again, the Union's definitely suffering casualties, but the rebels are suffering a ton. I don't see the rebels coming out of this as victors. I think we're going to get if not historical, as close as you're going to get in one of these games. That can always play out a little differently. So let's play out this last turn and see what happens. All right, so I finished out turn 6, 1800 turn. It's going into turn 7, 1900. And I'd say things are pretty much done for the rebels. The Union was able to get 3 supply wagons across. There are 2 that are poised to go across, and they will go across next turn. There's no way the Confederates can break through and get to them. Yes, they penetrated across Hughes Ford, too little too late. Up here, other than 2 brigades of Union, they were able to push off the line and they were immediately pushed back off the line. You can see for the rebels, many routed units, many reduced, flipped over. This is the limbered artillery, so those don't count. But you can see here, I think some of them are maybe routed as well. They're still covered. Show that off him. But regardless, you know, I would say I'm going to call it here because even though there's 2 more turns to play, you know, the rebels, they're just breaking themselves against these fortifications. You know, much like historically, maybe they thought they weren't going to be effective because there's more men and they able to get up there in time. Yeah, this game, it ain't happening. So I'm not going to count up the total VPs just because I'm not going to take my time to do that. But it's definitely going to be a Union victory. If not overwhelming, they're definitely going to consider it a strong victory. So, because even just looking at, you can see the, you know, the SP markers, right, with reduced. Yes, definitely the Union, again, has some. They've suffered casualties. But the rebels, I mean, they got them all over the place. You can see them underneath a lot of these units here. And then all these units that have been routed, they've all suffered casualties as part of them being routed. So we got, what, 5 rebel brigades that show routed just on the map right now. Yeah, I'm going to have a overview review video coming very shortly. Otherwise, definitely enjoying this one and played out very historically, I would say. Obviously, it's a game. There's going to be changes here and there, and it's not never going to be 100%, but awfully similar to the historical result, which, sorry for the rebels, and good for the Union here. So hope you guys enjoyed. Just follow along on this. I know I didn't play out a whole lot on camera, but I want to try something a little different, just sort of give you guys updates in between turns. Kind of, you could see the battle develop, you could see the game develop, and help you guys form your opinions on whether this is a type of game for you or not. So, all right, I think that's it for this video. If you made it this far, I'd love a thumbs up on it. I would love a subscription. It's free. Just click the button. You don't have to watch all my videos, just, you know, the ones that are interesting to you. Otherwise, until next time, everybody, later.